you need to sit down and be brothers. You need to go through the goods, the bads. You need to know that person beside you like the back of your hand. And when you do, you're unstoppable.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Down Under Paintball. This week is episode 21, and we're sitting down with Elmo Sheehan. As you'll get to know in this episode, Elmo's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in paintball. If you've ever had a chance to meet him in person, he's one that's always up for a chat and always keen to help out anyone that's out on the paintball field. It was surprising to me from this episode just how long Elmo's career had spanned, how early he got into the sport. So he's seen it all from back in the early mechanical days through to the current generation of paintball guns. So before we get rolling on this episode, once again, just want to say a massive shout out to all the patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support behind the scenes. You guys make it all work. If you want to support the show, you can directly. Just search out patreon.com/DU Paintball. And with that, we're going to jump straight into this episode of Down Under Paintball.
Okay, I need to find paintball again.
If that's the kind of commitment you're going to give, then that's the kind of commitment I want. So I'm sticking.
You're listening to Down Under Paintball.
I mean, everybody on that team was a veteran. Everybody.
This is Will McDonald, and you're listening to Down Under Paintball.
It does make it a more interesting sport for the masses.
They are doing it better than anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah, show other women that might be interested in playing that, hey, you can go out there and you can be successful in this sport.
I've got the best seat in the house with some of the best paintball in Australia.
And you're listening to Down Under Paintball.
I don't enter into the politics. I'm not interested. I'm just trying to, grow the sport, get more people playing paintball.
This week, I'm joined with Elmo Sheehan. Thank you for joining us on the show.
No problem, mate. Good to be here.
So, first things first, where are you calling in from today?
So home ground, which is Lithgow, New South Wales. Straight over the top of the hill from my home field, which is Hartley Valley Paintball. So, yeah, nice mountain bike ride over the top of the hill to get down there and do some training. Or if I go the long way, it's about 1.5 kilometres down the road. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So you got your gun strapped to your back, riding over the mountain.
Actually, when I used to work there, we used to way back in the day. My little brother and in shittaz and me, we used to. I remember when we were poor little kids and we lived a little bit closer at Mum's house. And when scooters very first came out, we used to take turns at riding a scooter, and we'd have a little fight of one of us would get to push, or one of us would get to ride it to the top of the hill, and the other one would ride down. And then on the way home, yeah, but whoever rode down the hill on the way there in the morning would usually have to push it back up of the afternoon. And and it is a really steep hill. If you've ever been to Lithgow and seen the Gap Hill, come and bomb that on a scooter or a skateboard one day and see how you go. But some good times. Cool.
So yeah, you said shittaz. So yeah, this is hotly contested. I know at the round one this year we were talking about who's the older out of you and shittaz. So yeah, but a lot of people don't believe it.
Yeah, so I've got 4 years on him, I think. It'd be somewhere, 4 years. I believe he's what is he? He's 80 something. I'm going to say 85, 84 model. And 79. So getting old now.
You're only as old as you are, as you act, as Ben says.
Yeah. Only as old as you feel. Yeah. I don't feel too old at all. I've got another few years left in me.
Yeah, nice. So, speaking of back in the day, why don't we try and we'll see how far back we can go, and how did it all start for you? How did you get into the sport?
So I've got to say, to start off with, if we're going to talk from back in the day sort of stuff and start off from the beginning, as we go through this, my memory is not the greatest at all. So any little details I stuff up, we'll just add that as gospel. And yeah, and it'll be fact from now on. But yeah, from the beginning. So Chris or Shittaz actually started a job at Fireball Paintball. He started before me. He was pretty young then. I won't say how old because he probably shouldn't have been playing tournaments at all back then. But he was a little bit younger than me, and being one of four brothers, he was the only one that worked there, and close family friends. So one of his best friends was Mark's, or the owner's brother-in-law. Oh, sorry, stepbrother. And he actually went to school with Chris, and myself, him, did a lot of motorbike riding together and blah, blah, blah. And of course, he's one of Chris's best mates. They hung out a bit. Yeah, I better tell the full story because there was, it'll give Mark, the owner, a little bit of credit as well. But we were pretty much little rat bags back then, and Chris was no different. He was probably the worst of a lot of us. But him and his mate, the owner's stepbrother, decided to break into the field one day and broke the canteen and stole, probably chocolates or whatever they ended up getting, probably bags of chips and chocolates. And the owner, Mark, actually found out about this. So he, the good guy is, and he really is a good guy. He's, I look at him as a second father these days. He sort of told them both that, there was no way he was going to call the cops on them or anything like that. So he basically told them both they were going to work on their debt. And that's how Shittaz actually got his job at the paintball field. And once he played his first game, just loved it, and came home, every second afternoon. I was working as a mechanic back then. So, he'd come home and tell us all about how cool it is and blah, blah. And of course, we'd always, like growing up in the bush and stuff, we'd always played armies and all them sort of games. So it was just inevitable that, that I was going to get down there. And I remember my other younger brother, Alex, who's right into, I guess, like the big mother races and all that sort of thing. He was like, we can't go down to this place. We're going to get owned by our little brother. And, I was sort of like, so Alex, I believe, still hasn't played a game of paintball. And this is going back, this would have been about 1997. Next thing you know, it would have been late 97. I'd finished my apprenticeship. No, actually, it was a little bit later. It might have been 98. And they needed a worker for the weekend. And Chris was like, come down and give us a hand. You'll get paid at the end of the day. And so that's how I started down there. I worked there for maybe a month of weekends, so maybe 4 weekends. And Mark, the owner, was putting together a little team to go down and play at an event in Sydney, which I sort of knew nothing about. And so the weekend before the event was the first time I actually picked up a paintball gun and shot it at somebody. I'd reffed a few times, but I'd never played at all. We had one training day down there where I sort of spent all day learning what it was like to get shot by my little brother. And then we went down the next weekend, and I basically got thrown in the deep end because we went to the Super Sevens Masters, which we played. I'm pretty sure back then that team that we took down could have still been Jokers, or it might have been the very beginning of Firestorm. But um, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're in the pro division, and I remember being in Snake Corner, and and this is going to sound awesome for all the new players, but I remember standing with my back to the barricade, yelling at the top of my voice. I'm pretty sure they're all on me. Um, and, and a referee pissing himself laughing, which I'm pretty sure that would have been Blue at the time. But yeah,
That's great.
and so after that, it was just that little thing where, like, I was hooked straight away, and after that, I just remember like I'd go down and ref at every opportunity, and Mark, the owner, was, he's one of them guys. You go in and you put in a hard day's work, and after the day's done, it doesn't matter what happens. He's more than happy to give you as much paint as you want to throw around, and he's one of them people I guess he's never really been in it for the money or the business. He just loves the sport as well. So he's right there beside you, shooting the crap out of you usually, or trying to shoot somebody else with you. And, if I walked down there now and said, hey, let's grab 500 paintballs and go and shoot the crap out of each other, he'd be the first to get up. And, he'd be a little bit slower these days, but yeah, he'd be the first to get up and get out there with us. And so having a little brother that was better at it than I was, I think that would, other than skateboarding, he sort of really excelled at that, where I couldn't skate to save my life. I was more like the mountain bikes and dirt bikes and stuff. But yeah, like having that common love for something and having him being better than me just pushed me to get out there and want to play more. So yeah, and I remember many a times, this is going back into we had the SL22s, I think they are, the pumps, and badges. So I think a couple of the boys, I remember Mark and John Hodges, they had some nice guns. Like a couple of them had RT auto mags and stuff like that, but they stayed in the safe for special occasions and tournaments and stuff. But yeah, we'd be out there and playing pump games or picking up a badger each and going out there and trying to smash each other. And I guess when I sort of first thought to myself, hey, like I could probably be good at this was, I remember going out one afternoon and Chris had said the same thing, to me as we did nearly every afternoon for months, which was, you ready for a few games of one-on-one after this? And, and I was like, yeah, no problem. And he said, we'll make it sporting. And he grabbed a little foam cup of, one of the little foam cups that was by the water bubbler and filled it up with paintballs. And he goes, here you go, here's yours. And I think there would have been, 9 paintballs in this cup. And we both went out and, no hoppers on the guns and just the foam cup. And, you're holding it in your hand, so you don't know if he's actually shot a ball or, did he just shoot a ball past me or was that there? Or, and because I'd only just started out, I wasn't, you're not that switched on to go, oh yeah, that was a paintball or it was just a blind shot. So, yeah, he's sitting there wondering, like, how many does he have left? Like, and yeah, and like, I remember looking up and there was like, 5, 6 of the other refs sitting on the steps watching us, and the game had gone on for, what felt like half an hour. It was probably 5 or 10 minutes, but
It always seems
yeah,
longer.
and really back then it was really like, I can't even explain to people who play paintball today how big it was back then at that field, because I remember going there weekend after weekend, and we'd see 180 players each day of rentals come through that small field. and I think the most we did was something like 320 players in one day, and
Crazy.
and he was running like I think at the peak while I was there, and it was even it was there was days he was talking about that it was bigger before I was there. So, but I remember at its peak when I was there, we had around 9 full-time referees that would work every weekend, and most of us would run like the better guys or the head refs, as we'd sort of called ourselves, would run 2 to 3 games in one day. And if any of them groups, Mark had a little rule that if any of them groups had more than 20 players, you would make a $20 bonus for each group you were in that had more than 20 players. So, like working on a mechanic's wage, and I think I would have been a third year when I first went down there. But on my third year wage, I think it would have been about $360 or something a week. And then to get, an extra 250, 300, depending how big the weekend was. It was just like getting paid to do something you love. So I thought of
it's a fun job.
And I got that bug, and then so from there, I guess we started. Mark got us into, and all the early days of paintball would all be thanks to him and John Hodges. Spacco was always there. Jeremy Shinko, he taught us so much. It wasn't funny. Dom Albright, who's Coffs Harbour local. You'd probably remember Dom from back in the day. But guys like that, and I hope I'm not forgetting any of them, but just sort of I owe them everything when it comes to paintball. I mean, Mark especially, I remember when we first started playing the APPL or Apex, whatever it was back then. We were doing other rounds as well, a lot of the bush ball, and then the first speedball events we were doing was the Super Sevens and Alex Fernando's Apex series or East Coast series. I can't remember what it was called back then, but
I've never actually heard about that before.
Yeah. So the Apex was, I believe, the one I'm thinking about, and that was Australian Paintball East Coast Series, and that was run by a guy, Alex Fernando. I hope I've got his name right because my memory is totally shocking. But so when we started that, we divided the teams up into, or Mark actually divided the teams up into two. The more experienced guys played as Firestorm, and we all started off. I was on the novice, or not. I think we were playing semi-pro or something like that, or amateur, because the divisions were a little bit different back then. But so there was one team called Firefight, one team called Firestorm, and we sort of travelled around everywhere. And from sort of Moama, Victoria area up to, I think the furthest I played would have been Queensland in Grafton, and Grafton's just this side, but Black Soil or Black Springs, Black Soil, I think it is, up at the APG field up there, and MPG. But going way back, I've almost just about to look up at one of the name tags that I've got there from them old ones, but but that series was pretty much, I guess, like the Australian standard. Anyone who was anyone had to play in that to be anyone, really. And we turn up to them events, and Mark would basically, in the beginning, Mark was supplying all our gear, the guns, everything, especially for us on the novice team. We had nothing, you know what I mean? Like, to get a gun back then was pretty pretty hectic. You had to have a D class firearms license.
Yeah, okay.
Which is, semi-automatic
Yeah,
firearms.
if I had a category D license, I definitely would be buying a paintball gun.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it was over the top regulation. The guns, even like I believe still back then, even if you had the firearm license and bought the gun, it still couldn't leave the field. So it was kind of a shove them all in the boot and try and cross the border kind of. Like, there was definitely no flying overseas with them. There probably was later on, but at that stage it was all pretty tight, and they were classed as a semi-automatic firearm. So yeah, it was kind of like I said, throw them all in the boot, cover them up with a heap of gear, and hope you didn't get pulled over on the way. A lot of the times there was, I don't even think there was paperwork that existed to be able to get them between fields. Once you're at the other field, you're fine. You're on a paintball field and you had a paintball gun, but actually traveling between the fields, there was I do remember a part in time where we were able to ship guns, and we'd ship them from our local field to the field we were playing at, to try and keep within, the laws of doing the right thing. And and you sort of 2 weeks of getting your gun ready and shipping it off, and then hoping it'd be there when you arrived to play, and then ship it back. But I'm so glad the rules have changed.
Yeah.
So back then, I actually, a lot of people don't know this either, but Mark, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm nearly 90% certain, I'll have to check on this, but I'm nearly 90% certain that he was the guy, and if he wasn't worldwide, then it was definitely in Australia, who invented the autococker.
Okay.
Being an engineer, he took a Sterling pump gun, and I did read this somewhere, like in a pretty reputable magazine, but he took a pump gun and a Sterling pump and bolted a ram to the side of it, and basically made definitely Australia's first autococker. So and then I believe he was approached by a few Americans to sort of sell the idea, and I don't know what happened after that, but from the feeling I get of who he is, he probably just said, "Oh, look, this is how it's done, and I don't care, like, make whatever you want of it." But that sort of inspired me to turn autococker gun.
Yeah.
It was my first gun that I bought, and this is going to be pretty funny, but I remember going to, this is 15 years, 10 years after all this, of him developing that gun that he'd made. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's I've gone to Steve Bayless, who had the shop in, I'm going to say, it wasn't Blacktown, but it was down there somewhere, maybe not Reesby. But Mark Bayless had, Steve Bayless had a paintball store in inner Sydney there somewhere, back in the day. And I actually went down there and looked at a few guns and realised that I couldn't buy a gun too easily. So I bought an autococker kit for a PMI Tracer, which is the crappiest paintball, pump action paintball gun you could probably buy. Mark had 2 or 3 of them laying around the safe that just never seemed to get used, and they were really light. And I don't know, I just took a fancy to one of them, and basically once I bought the autococker kit for it, I think it cost me like $150 back then. Steve basically threw it at me and said, "It's never going to take it off my hands." And yeah, so I built that thing as my first gun, and I remember showing up to a tournament at Paintball Pete's when he was at Pete's Ridge there, and yeah, I shooting away on this gun, and it sounded like a 22 but louder, and yeah, and just like to get it to not chop paint was a feat in itself. But it had a pretty carrier stick shot, like it would shoot pretty dead flat, and then at about I guess 60 meters, the ball would nearly just drop out of the sky, and so I'm playing up the back end. I'm sort of, firing a few shots towards my mirror at the other end of the field, and then just walking the gun backwards a little bit and just jagging people out from behind their barricades. And they're sort of looking at me like, where did that shot come from? Like, how come I've been hit on top of the head? And I remember Steve Bayless was actually there, and he walked up to the side of the field, watched me do it, and then waited for me to walk off the field and asked my name and who I was and blah, blah. And he's like, where the hell did you buy this? And he's holding the gun, and he's like looking at it like, what a piece of shit. Like, who would be at an actual tournament? And yeah, I just looked at him and said, yeah, if you don't remember, I bought that off you 2 weeks ago for like $150. And he's like, oh, right. Yeah, no, that's good quality product though. But and yeah, so that was my first gun that I owned. Of course, I really didn't own it. I only owned pieces to it, and like I said earlier, we weren't meant to take it from the field at all. But yeah, so that was kind of where I started out.
Have you still got it?
I do still have pieces to it. It is still somewhere down at Hartley. Mark's sort of gone through that many guns. He's got, like any paintball field, he's got a couple of shipping containers that are just full of old parts and the old guns that have never left the license. And they're all locked away, but it's not actually in the main safe. And when I go down there, that's sort of where I keep the majority of my paintball stuff when it's not at home. And yeah, I'd have to just go down the back into one of the shipping containers, and I'm sure it's still laying there somewhere, probably covered in there. But I actually found a bolt for it the other week going through my toolbox, and yeah, just brought back old memories of because they actually have the slide on the side of them opens up into the breech. So when they fire and the bolt's coming back, a lot of the air escapes through the slots in the side that where the pump handle actually screws into the bolt.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it was actually so loud because it's such a crappy design. But yeah, I remember sitting there making my own bolts and trying to make sleeves up so that half this air wouldn't escape out the side of the gun, and look, like that's what everybody was doing back then. Like if you had a gun, like I remember me and my brother sitting there before the days of Dremels, with an electric drill and a couple of the smallest die grinding bits that I could get from work, and we'd be sitting there trying to mill out the inside of an auto mag solenoid, or and they weren't even solenoids back then, they were just valves. So yeah, you're trying to mill them out and trying to get more air capacity in certain areas and make air flow better in other areas. And I certainly didn't do as much of it as shittaz did, but yeah, I remember that kid just sitting there for days trying to figure out how to get his hopper to shoot quicker, or how to get the gun to be more consistent. And yeah, and then of course we went from CO2 to air, which just made a massive difference. And yeah, and I think, and back then as well, we sort of once we'd played for a few years, the team sort of got approached by MacDev in the very early days of them just making regs, and and stuff like that. So that really helped as well. And yeah, the amount of painstaking hours that I've spent over a paintball gun, and even today, like I'll buy a new, the last gun I bought was a CS 1.5 or whatever from Action Paintball there off Mike, and the first thing I did was get it home and open it up and and have a look how it works and and what areas can be improved on and blah 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 and they are just all factory made, and it's even my old Geo 3 or whatever I was using before that, the inside of I've spent time to open up a few of the ports and get it to flow a lot better and if you pick it up over another, there's a noticeable difference. It might not be much, but in my head, it's like I've added my little touch to that gun and made it better somehow. But that's part of the game for me is like working on the gun, working on your skills and all that. It all comes hand in hand. So yeah.
Yeah, it sort of sounds like it's a bit of a shame because I know with the newer guns, I'm sure when you open them up, there's probably a lot less things that you can be tinkering with than there was back in the day.
Yeah, and it's so much and really these days you just buy the guns and there's no need to open them up. They're already out of the box and just, I hear of people, I guess these days it's the same, but people are a little bit more tech savvy these days and they're like, oh, I've changed the solenoid dwell or whatever. And it's sort of more on the board of programming than, actually getting inside the gun and doing little things here and there. But I guess from my point of view, especially having a mechanic background from my early days, I was at the time, I did my apprenticeship and then I went into building high performance engines. So I have always just loved turbos and I've really good understanding of there's not much I'm good at, but airflow principles and the way that I guess air works in different situations. I sort of have always had an understanding of it, and I was never really taught at I've just always been able to sort of picture, in my head how it works and why, why air spins quicker in the middle of a tornado than, inside it. Like if you've got an exhaust pipe or whatever and you tornado that air, I've always been able to see why it travels down the pipe quicker than air that's not turbulent or spinning. And and when I look at a paintball gun, to me it's just like it's all valves and it's all airflow, and so I always, even some days I'm like I could make that better than than the guy who built this. Yeah, might just be a little bit overconfident there, but yeah, and like you said, these days you pull them out of the box and they're just so on point. Like if we could ever imagine that, I'd be able to grab a CS and have a gun that shoots like that, or even a Lux, or it doesn't matter what you really shoot these days. Out of the box, they're brilliant compared to what we had back then. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess you'd be pretty happy with the resurgence of the mechanical division, if that's sort of where your interests lie with the guns like that, because I know those guns you can really, when you get them singing, they can you'd be surprised that they're mechanical, some of them, the speed that they shoot.
Yeah. I'm actually mine shoots a little bit too high BPS for it to be allowed in that mechanical division. So, but it's so I have an auto mag that's got it's I can't even think what the back's called anymore. It's not the response back. It's the totally lost my mind. But it's basically the valve where you half trigger it and it just sits there and rocks on your finger and
Not a
and
rocket
just auto.
trigger.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay. Yeah.
but it's actually the back valve.
Yeah, right.
It comes with that gun, with that back valve and then the trigger kit that goes with it. And it's just, I think last time I checked it was like 36, around 36 balls a second.
For a mechanical gun.
Yeah, and I took it down to the 10-man. It might have been 26, but I took it down to the 10-man and opened it up and said to Mike, hey, you reckon I can have a run with this today? And he's like, wait a minute, give me a look at that. He's like, no, no way. I'm like, but, at the moment it's so poorly tuned that it's chopping every second ball out of the breech. Like, way I said, it's a disadvantage. And really, like, yeah, if I had more time, I would love to sit there and play with that gun and get it just off its guts. But at the same time, it's exactly like we just finished talking about. It's just so easy for me to set one of me Eclipse guns on 5 balls a second and go out and know that ball's going to be straight. And, back in the day of playing with the auto mags and that, you'd pick a gun and that would be your gun. And after, like, no ball ever went straight. There was no such thing as a straight ball. Every gun had a different characteristic, and then after that, not only that, the paint had different flight as well. So the worst paint we're shooting these days is still much better than the best stuff we were shooting back then. And basically, it got to the point where teams, and especially us, like, we wouldn't tell people this back then because it would be, giving away our secrets. But where today we want to paint up in the cars and stuff, back then what we'd actually do, and Mark had actually built a rotisserie and a drum, and we'd spend most of the morning cleaning the paintballs, putting them into this drum, which just slowly rolled the paintballs around for 2 hours, and basically just to get the paint to be more even inside the shell, so that the air bubble was in the center or closer to, because you'd get this paint that was just so thick and it would all be on one side, so you could literally grab a handful of this paint, put it through a hopper and get a 5-meter spread at at a couple of meters. Yeah. And after we'd rolled it, we'd find, it was just so much better. So yeah, like, I don't even think anybody knew back then that we were doing it. A couple of teams caught on after a while and started to sort of do the same thing, even just by rolling the boxes. Like, a lot of teams would just get a box, sit it there, roll it onto its side for 5 minutes, roll it onto its top for 5 minutes, and just slowly roll the box over a couple of hours during the day, and even that would help. But yeah, like, we're just so spoiled. And to think back then we were paying like 25 cents a ball, pretty much. It was just like, yeah, I was so glad the guns couldn't shoot any faster than they could, because yeah, we just have no money otherwise.
Yeah, and with that auto mag, like, obviously it's got no eyes, so if you're shooting 30 or like 26 balls a second, none of the hoppers would have been able to keep up with it back then either, would they?
Yeah, no. So even with the view loaders and stuff, like, they were just an agitated hopper, and so you'd have to two shot stop, and you'd get a quick burst of 3 or 4, but then you'd definitely be giving it that little shake. And it was sort of part of the game to take them 3 or 4 shots and then give the gun a little shake. Later on, I remember when we went to the electric guns, and the Hoppers had a pretty hard time keeping up with anything at that stage. And we actually started off our first electric guns that we personally, or that I personally used, was the early model shockers, the big bricks we used to call them.
Yeah. Is that the shoebox shocker that a lot of people talk about?
Yeah. So they were just massive. But in the early days, Shittaz actually invented, I guess, an add-on to a hopper, and he actually had off the back exhaust port. So there's a little exhaust port off the back of them that vents the exhausted air from behind the bolt to shoot the gun. He run that to a little pressurized solenoid inside an added piece that he'd put on the back of his hopper. And I think at first he was agitating the balls with the air, like triggered off the air that came from that exhaust port. And then later on he'd actually added a little solenoid or switch or something so that it basically spun the hopper a little bit more every time there was a shot, because you got to remember back then there wasn't even eyes in hoppers. So the later models after that, they actually put eyes into the view loaders, which was a second generation or something, or probably the fifth generation of view loader. But yeah, before that, when they were just standard, with the little paddle and the motor that he just flicked it on and it basically just kept going. So he did a couple little things to actually make them shoot better. And in the early days of Firestorm, I think a couple of the boys were running them, and that was like getting back to working on the guns and all that sort of thing. That was stuff that everybody else was trying to do. Everybody else obviously had their own little modification and everything to get it to shoot quicker. But buying stuff out of the box back then and expecting it to be, up to the level of playing a pro tournament or anything just wasn't going to happen. So it was, and the same thing was going on in America. And I guess it's just progression in the sport, that just invents the things that we're just lucky to have today, really. So.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Just that innovation. It sounds like if you guys had, the right setup with machinery and stuff, you guys could have been the next big manufacturer of paintball ideas and parts. It sounds like you guys had it all going on up there.
Oh, we've still got ideas. Like, I think when it comes down to it, we're just sort of, don't care that much. We care enough. We care more about doing it for our own guns than trying to sell the idea, or if somebody came up and said, "Hey, what are you doing there?" We'd be probably too eager to show them and give our idea away, especially at that point in time. Like, so it's just kind of, I guess it's kind of small town mentality sort of thing, where you're just not always in it for the big picture. And certainly later on in life, I'm like, if I had a dollar for every good idea I had, paintball or not, I'd be a very wealthy man. But it's like at the time you're just sitting there playing with a paintball gun, thinking to yourself, how can I make this better? And and I will never make any money off this. It's paintball. So yeah, we probably would have made $1 million, and at the time we probably would have spent it all on beer and other things, and gone anywhere with it. So you probably want to be glad that we didn't start a paintball company, because probably would have gone under, or it would be called HK, and that'd be really successful.
No, I like that. Was it because I think I remember, and now you guys are like you're saying the things that you and Chris or Shittaz were getting up to. I remember one event seeing shitters with a wooden gun. Was
Yeah.
that you guys that made that?
Yeah. So that's going back a little bit, but yeah, he was up for anything, that kid, and yeah, any way that he could like make something and try and think it was better, or even if it was or wasn't, or yeah, but and I think a lot of that goes back to when we were kids, and I remember real early memory that I have of growing up, and the old man had spent, 2 or 3 days in the shed making us all guns, and of course we're across the road in the paddock, playing armies, as we used to call it, shoot 'em up, or cowboys and Indians, or whatever you want to call it. Every kid had their own version. But yeah, we had the police rock up, and basically, a couple of the neighbours had called the police because, I was running around with a double barrel shotgun, and Chris had this M16, and, my other brother had this long rifle, and, and the cops walked up to us, and even when they took the guns off us, were like, still thought they were real guns until they actually held them and then looked down the barrels and could see that they were just, pieces of pipe. But and so sort of, especially growing up, I guess, where we did, and how we did, we, even if we wanted to, we didn't have the money to go out and buy all the latest gear, and a lot of times we took pleasure off, I guess, showing up to tournaments and having nothing, and having Mark give us, what he could, and spending the time that we could to modify or improve on the nothing we had, and beat a team that had just, basically showed up with all new equipment, or even, nobody had all new equipment back then, but there were definitely teams that had the best of the best. And we took pride in showing up and beating them with anything we had. That's one thing that I'll never let go from the sport. And I hear people say constantly, like, there's a couple of things in paintball that, and I'm not saying I don't agree with it, I'm not saying that it's wrong or anything like that, I'm just saying it's my point of view. And one of them things is like when people go, oh no, that's my gun, you can't use it. Like, I will hand my gun to anybody that's gun goes down, whether, I've gotten in trouble off my own team for going, oh yeah, here's a gun, you can use it. Oh, wait a minute, you're playing us. Like, cool, whatever. And at the same time, being like, I nearly fell on the ground and laughed my ass out when I, met actual pro players. And the first time I ever heard somebody say, I can't use that, I'm sponsored by insert any major gun manufacturer's name here. I was just like, what the like, I nearly lost my shit. I was just like, bro, like, it's a gun, pick it up and use it. Like, and and not taking anything away from them people. Like, I think it's great that big manufacturers support players and give them sponsorships like that. That's awesome, and that's probably why I've never had a sponsorship like that. I've had an opportunity, and my statement was, as long as I can pick up any gun on the day and just shoot it, and of course it doesn't go down well with everybody, but that's just my attitude. And to me, it doesn't matter what gun I have in my hand. It doesn't matter whether I'm about to get shot, or it's all the fun of going out there and just giving it the best of what I've got. I think you've noticed on the field, I think everybody has that. it's really out of character for me to just walk off the field after I've been shot. I'll spend the time to go, good shot. 90% of the time, my attitude doesn't change. And, whether I've been shot or whether I've just shot somebody, I'm sort of, still in that same, I just got to play paintball and I'm happy. And so a lot of people see that as not giving a fuck, I guess, is an easy way to put it. But but I put it as, as like just the love of the sport. And of course I always want to be the guy that's walking off clean and, and putting paint on people. But to me, even like, especially it's amplified when I'm playing with players that haven't played for so long, or players that look up to me and sort of go, he's a great player. And I've never pictured myself as a overly great player. I think that I don't go too bad and I have my moments, but when somebody like that shoots me, I go out of my way to walk up to them and, and go, great shot. This is where you got me from. And the amount of times that people just look at you and go, what? I actually hit you? Like, I didn't even see where that shot went. And you're like, no, when when you hung out and you let them three go, that first one was dead on point and it just took me head off. And, that means more to me than anything really. Like, just being out there and getting to shoot people and, and getting shot by people. That's one of the best parts. It is the sport for me. So.
Yeah, and it's good to see, it needs to be like that. There is, I was one to always take the game pretty serious, and I wouldn't be lending my gun to opposing teams, and I was controlled of what guns I could shoot and stuff like that. I was sort of the other side of the coin, but it was good to see that there's people that still were just out there to have fun, and that showing other people that it is a fun sport, that there's not just one way to play paintball. So I like that. I've always enjoyed watching you guys out there and doing things like that, like shaking hands when the guy bunkers you and you saying good job and giving him a pat on the back. Like, having
a good laugh about it too, That's but and I've been on both sides of the coins. I've played on teams where you're in the shit big time if you've lent that gun out or even spoke to an opposition player. And I've played on teams that that don't care. And it's a funny vibe because I guess I hear it a lot these days, of people going, either you train your butt off and you get somewhere, or and put everything into it, or you finish last, and I guess really and especially now, our team, especially in East Side Raw where we are now, we have that great, I guess, name of not giving a fuck and going out there and partying all night and then trying to get on the field the next day, and that's true. Like there's definitely been a lot of them nights. Back in the beginning though, there was a big period, and I'm not saying we just walked up and we just went, oh, we'll go and party and get drunk and do whatever and then come out and smash heads the next day. That definitely didn't happen. We put a lot of work and training into where we got. So in the early days of Firestorm, I didn't get an opportunity to play a whole lot with them, especially when they, when they were playing really well. But in the early days, definitely like they were always pulling players like myself, and we'd go up, especially when we were travelling to events, and not all the players could make it, so we'd just make the best 7 or best 10 players we had, and send them off. And there were times where we did train our asses off and put in the effort and got to where we were. And then it got to a point where I guess we started winning, and it wasn't just we started winning, now let's start partying. But I guess like where I'm trying to go with this, it got to a point where we knew each other really well. Not only being family, but and I say that about people like Mark and John and that, as well as my brother. But we were so tight that it's like we were pretty much sleeping, eating, and rolling around on the field together. So it got to a point where we were going out partying, waking up sometimes not, most of the time not even sleeping, getting out on the field and smashing heads and just laughing our guts out, like just having a great time. And that camaraderie and that attitude and where we were in that point of time just made other people, like, I don't know, like I've heard other people say it before, and you get inside people's heads and they've already lost the game before you take the field, but we weren't trying to do that. We were just having a baller of a time. And and to look back on some of it, like I said, I only got to play a couple of years and only a few tournaments here and there with them, but always been around and and playing on weekends and bush ball events and all that sort of stuff. It just got to this point where like it was, we were trying to outdo each other and see who could get the most fucked up and then go out on the field smashing those heads the next day, and laughing at the guy who's sitting there throwing up in his goggles because because he's weak, and it's I don't think that's a way to win, but once you get in that rhythm of of knowing the person beside you so well, like that is really important in a team. And you can have 5 blokes that are better paintballers or 7 blokes back in the day, that are better paintballers, that have trained harder, that probably deserve it twice as much, but don't communicate, or just make a couple of silly moves. And I guess communication being the big thing. Without that, and yourself, paintball is communication. Like, it's pretty much the whole game. And shooting people's the second part of the game. So, like having a group of blokes beside you that you knew what they were going to do, having my little brother play in front of me, I knew what he was going to do. I knew where he was going to go. And people sort of make that mindset of, they're so unpredictable because they don't know what they're going to do. And that's 100% correct. When we take the gate, 90% of the time, even to this day, we have no plan at all, right? And but as soon as that whistle goes or that buzzer goes and I watch that player in front of me run, especially playing with Chris or Shagger or Pete, I know exactly where they're going and what they're about to do. And, sometimes, we're not yelling, we're sitting there. Some of our best games are sitting there talking, and that communication is key to winning, as well as training, as well as being a good shot, as well as, a good gunfighter. But that communication really needs to be built in any team. And Like I can't stress that enough. Like if you're out there and you want to be a pro paintball team, you need to sit down and be brothers. You need to go through the goods, the bads. You need to know that person beside you like the back of your hand. And when you do, you're unstoppable. So, yeah, well, but a lot of really good times and really bad times had to go through our hands to make that happen. So
Yeah, I like it. Well, that's very wise words. Yeah, and I have seen it. You know, you guys are a very tight knit family out there, and like people do make that joke from time to time that you don't know what's going on, but you seem to be able to pull it together. More often than not, and put it on some good teams too. So unfortunately, we're starting to run a little bit low on time. But before you go, was there someone, while you've got the air, someone you wanted to give a shout out to, or some sponsors?
yeah, so I guess there's there's going to be so many people. I like to give a shout out to pretty much all the major paintball fields in Australia that make it possible. So everywhere from, we'll start at the top, Townsville Paintball, TAC Ops Paintball in Queensland, and there's going to be some I'm going to miss, but I do mean every paintball field that's out there having a go, especially through the hard times we've had. I don't care whether you're just a punter field or you support us in the tournaments and stuff like that. Anyone out there running games, getting people into paintball, they're my real shout out. So yeah, TAC Ops, Coffs Harbour, Elite One. Pete and his family up there do so much for us. I truly believe that's one of the nicest fields in Australia. So if you're going to play anywhere, get up to there if you ever get a chance. Sydney Indoor, Spitfire, if that's still going.
They're still going. They got Formula One cars, sim cars there now. It's cool.
I actually saw the owner came past me the other day in a WRX with Spitfire Paintball written all over it. So if he's listening to this, I was that weird guy in a Mack truck, getting weird looks and and trying to wave you down. But so all the paintball fields, especially two really key people, and I'll start off with Mark here. I've spoken a lot about him in this interview, and I can't stress that enough. Him and the field down here have given me everything in paintball and brought me to where I am and where I'll go, and my kids will continue to play there. The same in action paintball, and Mike at Rouse Hill there, and as I go through all these people, I think as well, and everyone else knows, they're all family fields, and when you go there, you're part of the family, and they take you in, and 99% of them are just, in it for the love of the sport and just want you to get in and play and have somebody else to shoot at, or somebody else to shoot with. And there's not many other people, or other sports that are really like what we have. But yeah, like Mike Wyber and the things he's done for paintball in Australia are massive, as we all know. He's a big part of that. And yeah, all the way down, Canberra. I can't even think of old matey's name there. It's just slipped my mind, but he's, another good bloke. I've played there a little bit, and, all the way down to Rob and the Barleys down in Victoria, and Chili Henty's field, and Danny Coleman. Cummings. Cummings. Yeah. So yeah, and like every single one of them, they're the people I want to thank for making it all worthwhile. Our sort of sponsors in the way of Eastside Raw is, obviously Elite One, and we have a little HK sort of dealo there, and then Townsville Paintball, I've already said that, and my clothing brand, which I'll I do a little bit of. Sorry to anyone that wants stuff that I don't have time for, but not in it to make money. I just do what I can for people. Don't have a lot of time, but I try my best. So I guess all the little people, the photographers, people like yourself out there doing vlogs and podcasts and all that sort of thing, just keep growing the sport, and pretty soon, I want to see it big again. I want to see it like it was back in the day. I want to see my kids out there enjoying it like I'm getting to do now, and I'll not going to leave the sport until until they put me in the ground. So, I'm always going to be there beside it, and I just will love to see it grow. And anything anybody's doing to put it in, like I saw, I don't get to watch a lot of the YouTube videos and stuff like that because I'm always busy, but, Wimpy's doing great things. You're doing great things. Dwayne, of course, is always doing great things. I saw Velma, a couple of her videos from the 10-man the other day. So anybody that's out there, no matter how good or bad it is, taking videos of paintball, the photographers, all that sort of stuff, throwing it up on YouTube and for everyone to see, that's where it's at. And thanks very much, because love yous all.
Yeah, no, cheers, mate. It's good. Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. It's just every little piece that just grows the sport, and there's so much out there, you can't keep up with it all, but it's good. It's good to see that people get into it.
Even all the other companies that are getting into it. So I'm never biased towards anything. I sort of like all the little people trying to do something. Like I saw, is it Connor Johnson?
Yep.
Did I get that right?
Yeah,
People, and his shirts, jerseys and stuff that he's doing now. Saw a couple of them at the 10-man the other day. They were mint. Like, he's out there having a go, throwing it down. So, all them little people doing stuff like that, I can tell you straight away how hard it is and how much effort you put in and how much reward you don't or do get out of it. And, anybody that's trying to input anything into the sport and have a real go and just do it for the sport and help people out, then, it's just, it's amazing. If they're making a few bucks on the side, even better. Like, you know what I mean? So, any of the little Australian companies like, MacDev out there making guns, Australian made, like that puts us on the map. And although I've never used their guns too much, I think I've shot one in my whole life. They're putting us on the map. So, thanks to them as well.
Yeah, that's it. Well, a lot of these companies, I know, like MacDev with manufacturing and stuff, like if they put those machines to building anything other than paintball, they could make so much more money. So they're not in it for the money. If they've picked paintball, it's such a niche market. It's not something that you're gonna do to make millions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you're in paintball, you're I remember back in the day they used to say if you're in the paintball scene, you're only in it to launder money that you've made from somewhere else. These days, it's not even that. These days, you're just in it to throw your money up a wall. So, I've done a lot of that, and it's been worth every cent of it, and I'll do it all over again 10 times if I could. So, I think, living where I do, I almost own my house where I am, and I was sort of lucky to get in on that. And you got to realise, I'm over 40 now, so most people my age nearly own 2 houses and have their lives figured out. I definitely know I could own, a multi-million-dollar mansion off the money that I put into paintball. So, it's that's a sacrifice I've made, and I'd do it all over again 100 times if I had to.
Yeah, just don't think about it too much.
No, I think about it every night as I go to sleep. And like I said, well worth it.
So, another question is there someone that you could recommend to the show for me?
So we talked about this earlier, and so many people. Like, there's so many stories I want to hear out there of people in the sport. I think I'm just going to go with. I've picked 3 solid people. I reckon rookie, which is Russ. What's Russ's last name? Bromley.
I've forgotten it. It's totally slipped my mind. Rob Ambrose, is that right? Yeah. Is that rookie?
Ambrose, sorry.
Yes.
I keep thinking of Kiefer. Yeah. Robbie Ambrose.
Yeah.
He's got some stories, and snake catcher. What a good guy.
Yeah.
Also, like Maddie Kling. I want to hear that story.
Yeah.
I've got to sit down with Maddie quite a few times, and I've heard a fair bit of his story and love it. And I think everybody needs to hear that. He's made it to the top, and he's where most of us dream of being. So I think Maddie, and then I think Ben touched on this the other day, but I'd love to hear Chris Austin's story, travelling Europe and playing a lot over there, to come over here and make Australia his new home. So, but I've got to stop there because there's just a massive list. So many people, and I know.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it because I've got my little list it's not that like you say, it's not really little, but I've got my list, and you think, oh, that's everyone. Like, I can't possibly think of anyone else, and every week I get stumped, so it's good. I get new names, so it's great. Yeah. The show's got a lot to go through before I run out of content.
Yeah, no, you've got years of content yet. I can tell you that.
And then, as the years roll on, while I'm trying to catch up, we've got all these new stories coming through. Like, I know I saw some photos of your daughter out there on the field the other day playing with the is it the Jokers? Is that right?
Wicked Assassins, yeah.
Wicked Assassins, yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at a picture now. There's a little Joker. Yeah, no, I'm getting my names mixed up. Wicked Assassins, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, Wade, stuff like that. Yeah, that's cool, man.
That was a little opportunity where, I was just about to leave home as well, and I'd already signed up myself and Tyrone, my son, who's been playing with me lately. Of course, he's 16 now, and I just bought him a dirt bike, and he's about to get that. Well, I've got it registered and everything. He's about to get his license and everything on that. And a week and a half ago, he comes home with a broken leg. So he actually did it on his push bike, doing dirt jumps. He's right into that sort of stuff as well. And he's, as I was always into, jumps, and used to race downhill mountain bikes and all that sort of stuff, which stopped when I got back into paintball. But he's broken his leg on his push bike. So 2 things came to mind straight away. One was, how could you go and break your leg on your crappy old push bike when I've just bought you a decent, 250 dirt bike that's now sitting in the shed doing nothing. And the other thing was, who's going to play paintball with us on Saturday? So I actually had just thought, oh well, we'll be down a player, and Curly signed up his better half in Kaylee, and so I thought, oh well, we've got 10 players, that'll do. And I was just about to walk out the door, and looked in my daughter's bedroom and thought, wait a goddamn minute here, somebody's older than us now. And woke her up and she had no idea. We went to the field, and when we got there, I told her she was playing, and look, she's an absolute champion. I think it was Mad Dog at one stage came around the barricade and bunkered her, and shot her 3 times, like straight in the hand, open skin too, no gloves or nothing. And and me as a father on the side of the field was like, I wanted to run on the field and actually go, wait, stop. Like, we're about to bunker my daughter. But at the same time, I'm like, you're like that soccer mum that's trying to yell at your kid to run it down the sideline. And I'm like, just shut up and look the other way. And and I did the right thing. And then as soon as, she'd been hit, I thought, oh, well, run on the field and make sure she's okay, because I thought, oh, this is going to bring a tear to her eye. And Mad Dog did the same thing. He's shot her and then gone, oh shit, are you all right? And she looked straight at me and she goes, oh, I'm good. And gave me that little, she said, it's fun. When are we playing the next one? So yeah, we walked off the field and yeah, I think a comment was, one day I'll get him back for that. And I was
Yeah.
That's so yeah, but it's just awesome to see them enjoying the sport that I love, and yeah, and they do get so much from it. Like, I wish every teenage kid, or every kid that's old enough, could get out there at the moment and have a go, because it really does get them out, and gets them from behind that iPad and gets them out enjoying the sunshine and the bush. So.
Yeah, and playing Call of Duty for real.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, we all had our own little name for cowboys and Indians, or armies, or whatever it was we called it back in the day. And the only difference was that, I guess, out here in the country, that we have hillsides and a lot of bush to run around, and blah blah. In saying that, when I was growing up living in West Hoxton and that, on the farm, we did the same there. So every kid, it's born into every kid. And while it's not exactly fun to shoot people, when you can shoot people with a paintball gun and go and have a beer with them later, or sit down and have a chat about it later and have a laugh and a feed, it's the most fun thing in the world to do.
Yeah, and it's a very unique thing. I grew up doing the same thing out in the bush with my mates. I was with sticks and pegging rocks at each other and stuff like that. So it's a little bit safer with a paintball gun, I think, than some of the things we got up to, glove guns and all that kind of stuff. So
we used to go to a mate's property, and and we had slug gun fights. And I can remember a couple of times being there. I only had to do it once, but I remember a couple of the boys with the needle nose pliers digging slugs out of their legs and stuff. It was I was a better shot and a quicker runner than some of them. Maybe that's where I got all my skills. But no, it's, like I said, it's just so much fun. I can't get enough of it still.
Yeah, well, it's great, and it sounds like you've had a good career and stuck pretty true to what you've always gone out there to achieve, and like still you guys are out there putting it to the teams that have all the gear, and flying the banner of these sponsored games, and doing like what you say, like really taking it serious, and you guys are out there having fun and still putting it on teams. So it's good to see.
Yeah, and not to put a dampener on any of that either. Last year we took it deadly serious, and that was one of my goals. People sit there and say, it's hard not to win without blokes like the Simpson twins and Jared, John, great players in themselves. If we went out there and and went, oh, we're going to get drunk and party and not have a plan, like like we have been doing, there would have been no win, and we would have just been letting them down. So yeah, that was one of the things, one of the whole reasons as a captain that I did that last year. Was my two main reasons were just to prove that we can be serious, and to prove that we could win the series with only using Australian players, and and the skill is here and the talent is sitting here. It just takes that, getting them together and getting the team to bond. And like if you had have asked, Carl's pretty easy going, but if you had asked Ben at the beginning of last year if we would gel as a team, he would have had doubts. As soon as we had our first training session and we sat down and it was made really aware, especially by me, that we were in for the long run, and we were there to do everything we had to do to win the series, then yeah, like it wasn't until like the second event that we actually started to gel as a team. The first event was just a fluke that we sort of even placed anywhere. But once we started moving as a team, and now we're some of the best friends, blokes could ever find. And it's, we're all, that's one of the great things about paintball. We're all from different walks of life. Some of us have drastically different views on life and life experience, politics, whatever. But in the middle, when we're on the field or after we've been on the field together, and especially with me, if you play on a team with me, doesn't matter where or for how long, you're pretty much one of my brothers. And like, not to make this segment any longer, but I take that way back. One of the key moments I have in paintball is I was playing a Super Sevens event. We ended up winning, but it was in Pro Division. It was for Firestorm back in the day, and we were all using shockers and the blow up bloody pieces of Velcro running across the field to each barricade that you weren't over. And I remember Shittaz playing in front of me, and he moved to a barricade that was like, as he does and as he did back then, a lot better than he does now, which was, him having to hold his asshole for 50 seconds and not move or he'd be shot. And there's 3 guns on him, and there's a guy trying to run him down, and we're on the Doritos side. And I remember coming out on the tape side, watching this guy about to step out and run down my brother, and I'm like, no, you don't. And then, he shot me back in, and I was behind my barricade, not being able to see, thinking to myself, he's about to run down Shittaz, like he's about to get shot. And something in my brain, like, me and Shittaz, we're very, well, everybody knows us, so we're pretty against each other, you know what I mean? We're not the best of brothers. We love to hate on each other, but we love each other to death, you know what I mean? Like, and that helps the competition. But if you were to pick a fight with him, I'd be like, yeah, cool, like, this is going to be fun. I would never stop him and go, I'm here for my brother, you know what I mean? Like, I'd watch him get the shit kicked out of him, and then if anything was unfair, I'd jump straight in. But if it's all fair and whatever, I'm not jumping in for my brother. He's big enough and not big enough for himself. But so I'm sitting behind this barricade thinking he's about to, bunker my brother. And something in my head clicked, and a little voice, so to speak, sort of went, no, you fucking don't. And if anyone's going to bunker him, it will be me. And that was a massive turning point for my game. I went from, playing paintball going, oh, what can I do, to going, this mentality of, you do not bunker my brother, not while he's in front of me. I'm not going to let that happen. And, and of course I, came out on the field side and, shot a few paintballs and then went back onto the tape and, and held that guy back, and there was no way he was getting out of his barricade. And of course, Shittaz lived there and killed probably everybody on the field. And then next thing you know, we won that point and went on to win the day. But that mentality of, that is my brother, that's what I take to every game that I'm playing. If you're in front of me, that's my brother in front of me, that's my brother beside me. And, and you better bring your shit if you're coming to get him. I will be shot before he will be. So, yeah, and, and that's the mentality you've got to take on the field. If, no matter how drunk and how late you've been up the night before.
Yeah, I like it. Well, hopefully we can have some more chances to see you act that out on the field this season. So, unfortunately, I gotta have to wrap things up here, but and I've got to run. But thanks a lot for sitting down and having a chat with us, and it's good to have a look inside your mind and see how you tick. It's been great.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for asking me to do it, and been a pleasure. And thanks very much for doing all you do, Scotty. Keep it up.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, thank you, and same to you. You're one of the nicest guys in the sport, and always there to lend an ear and have a chat. So it's good to catch up. Thanks a lot for sitting down with me.
Cool, much appreciated, mate.
Cheers. Thank you once again to Elmo for taking the time, sitting down and having a chat with me. I know the episode ran a little bit long, but Elmo had some really good things he wanted to say, and I just couldn't find it in my heart to stop him. So I hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as I did. So we've got some exciting things in the works coming up for you guys on the show. Hopefully soon, if everything works out right, we should have another event review coming up. And we're also going to be moving into some coaching things, trying to build better players and get some returning guests coming back on the show as well. So I'm throwing it out to all the listeners out there. If you guys had any questions that you wanted answered, or any topics that you think we could cover on the show, some area of the game that you think you might want to learn about, just to give everyone an idea, we're going to start out with some field walking, and then that's going to lead into formulating breakouts. We're also going to cover other things like new player drills. So if there's anything in that realm that you ever wanted covered, or maybe you wanted us to go a little bit deeper into, just make sure you drop us a line and let us know, and we'll add it to the pile of ideas. So the easiest way to contact the show is either via Facebook, just search out Down Under Paintball. You can also hit me up via email, that's dupaintball@outlook.com. That is a wrap on another episode of Down Under Paintball, and I'll see you next week.